I wasn't born strong. Life made me that way. When James died young, the house went quiet in a way that hurt the ears. 3 pairs of shoes still waited by the door. 3 lunchboxes sat on the counter. I had no time to break. The morning after the funeral, I tied my hair back, opened the workshop, and set a pot of beans to simmer so the children would smell home when they came back from school. I knew wood only by the sound it made when James planed it. Soft, steady, like breathing. I didn't try to replace him. I hired Mr. Johnson, a careful older carpenter with kind hands, for the cuts and joins. I took the front, the orders, the ledgers, the deliveries. It felt like building a bridge while crossing it. I learned to read invoices the way other people read weather. I learned which clients paid on time and which needed a tighter contract. Every receipt went into a labeled envelope in a biscuit tin. If I couldn't control fate, I could number it. At night I sewed. Wedding hems, school uniforms, altar cloths. My thimble left a little shiny ring on my finger that never quite faded. The sound of the foot pedal was a comfort, steady, honest, a machine that did exactly what you told it. I kept 2 notebooks, one for wood, one for thread. Dates, amounts, signatures. The tidy rows calmed my mind the way prayer used to. The children grew up in that rhythm. Daniel, serious and tall, learned to stack orders and count change without looking at his fingers. Sophia embroidered like she was drawing with light. Matthew loved the scrap bin. He'd pocket offcuts and ask 100 questions. We ate together around 7. We said grace even when dinner was rice and eggs again. I didn't hide the numbers from them. I wanted them to see how a life is kept afloat. A little saved here, an extra hour there, one bill paid early so the next month isn't so tight. Years blur when you're busy. We fixed a leaky roof with spring orders. We bought a used delivery van when Christmas tables brought in a rush. When the water heater died, I sold 2 finished dress orders at a discount to a neighbor who paid in cash that same day. It wasn't luck. It was 1,000 small choices that looked like luck from far away. I kept copies of everything. Contracts in plastic sleeves. Bank slips paper-clipped by month. A list on the fridge of who still owed and by how much. It wasn't paranoia. It was the habit of a widow who'd learned the world doesn't always catch you. Proof kept me steady. Proof paid the light bill. When the children finished school, one by one in borrowed gowns and grins too big for their faces, I felt something unclench in my chest. We took photos on the porch with the hydrangeas, the 3 of them flanking me like a guard. "You did this," the neighbor said. I nodded, because it was true and because false modesty never paid a mortgage. I didn't dream big. I dreamed exact. A house without leaks. A workshop with dust neatly swept into a pile at day's end. A pantry with beans and rice and a jar for sugar. The future, I believed, was a set of shelves you kept stocking, not a lottery ticket someone handed you. That's why I noticed the first change before I could name it. The way Daniel began to ask about the ledgers, not with curiosity, but with a clipboard voice. "How many units per week, Mom? Which bank handles deposits? Do you keep power of attorney on file in case of emergencies?" Sophia, sweet-voiced, began to compliment the house a little too often. Matthew started saying I should rest more. I told myself this was love growing up. I told myself I'd earned their worry. Then one evening they came together, all smiles, a cake on the table and a tidy folder set beside the plates. Candles flickered. We sang, I cut slices. And the whole time I couldn't stop looking at the papers waiting like a second dessert. The gift they brought wasn't flowers. It was a folder. They came in like a celebration. Paper plates, plastic forks, a cake that said, "To rest at last," as if rest were a trophy I had finally earned. Daniel set the cake in the middle. Sophia lit the candles. Matthew opened the curtains wide so the room felt bigger than it was. We sang, we clapped. I cut slices and handed them out. The folder sat off to the side, neat and patient, the only thing in the room that didn't breathe. Cream cover, metal clip, pages that didn't dare curl. I kept glancing at it the way you watch a pot that should be off but still ticks with heat. "Mom," Daniel said in his careful work voice, "we've been talking. You've carried us for so long. You deserve to rest." "Real rest," Sophia added, laying a hand over mine. "Not the kind where you still worry about bills." Matthew laughed too brightly. "Let us carry the boring stuff. You keep the fun." Daniel slid the folder closer. "We met a lawyer. He's very good. He explained how families do this all the time. It's called a general power of attorney. It just means we can stand in lines you shouldn't have to stand in, talk to people who waste your hours, sign forms you shouldn't have to read." The folder seemed to sit up a little taller, hearing its name. "I can still do my things," I said, not opening it yet. "I'm not sick." "Exactly," Sophia said. "That's why it's the best time. While you're sharp, you choose who helps. That's smart planning." Matthew nodded. "Emergencies, Mom. What if your ankle goes? What if you need a scan? Banks freeze accounts for nothing." Daniel finally opened the folder. Tabs, highlighter, sticky notes like little flags. "We pre-filled what we could," he said. "Look, it saves time. We've put your full name, address. We listed the accounts so you don't have to dig them out. It's all standard. Standard. Such a soft word for something so strong." I took the first page. The paper was heavy like it had a spine. The language walked in circles. Authorize, appoint, delegate. Words that tried to sound helpful but carried teeth. Daniel pointed with a capped pen. "Initial here to show you've seen this section. Just initials." My name already sat in several blanks, written in a tidy hand that wasn't mine. "Who filled these?" I asked. "The office," Daniel said quickly. "They help?" "It's a service. Saves time." "Mom," Sophia whispered, "you've given enough hours to this world. Let us give some back." I read a paragraph twice. It still didn't stay put. Power to manage accounts. Power to buy and sell property. Power to make necessary decisions. My heart did a small stutter at that word. Necessary to whom? "I'd like to think overnight," I said. Daniel checked his watch. "Notary closes at 6. We already booked a slot to avoid lines. We only need your signature. Otherwise we lose it and have to start again next week." "You hate when things drag." He was right. I hate when things drag. I have built my life on getting things done the day they should be done. Sophia cut another slice of cake and set it near my elbow, as if sugar could steady the hand that would hold the pen. "We'll still bring you the statements," she said. "Every month. You'll see everything, promise." Matthew smiled. "And you'll get your own money, just without the hassle. We'll call it your rest check." The folder waited, polite and sure. Papers don't push. They just sit until the room does the pushing for them. I thought about the biscuit tin full of receipts in the pantry, about the years of keeping proof because the world sometimes lies. I thought about James's hands and the way he measured twice before cutting once. I thought about how tired my back felt most nights when I leaned on the sink. Daniel placed the pen on the line, capped, blue. "Mom," he said gently, "let us help you." I took the pen. It fit my fingers like it had been waiting for my grip. I told myself I was being wise. I told myself I was saving future hours for better uses. Quilts, church bazaars, slow mornings. I wrote my name the way I've always written it. Clear, careful, no flourishes. Pages turned. More lines, initials, a date. When it was done, Daniel exhaled like he'd put down a heavy box. Sophia hugged me. Matthew whooped, then caught himself and squeezed my shoulder instead. The folder closed with a soft click. It looked thinner, somehow lighter, as if it had eaten. We ate the cake before the frosting bled. We washed the plates. We laughed about old stories. The evening felt almost normal again. Only when the house went quiet did the room tilt just a little. The pen mark on my finger looked darker than usual, like a bruise shaped as a line. I signed to save time, and signed away time itself. It didn't happen with a slam. It happened with soft clicks. First, Daniel helped with deposits. "No reason for you to wait in line, Mom," he said, palming the envelope. "I'll swing by on my lunch break." He came back with a smile and 2 stamped slips I didn't recognize. Different font, different teller initials. "New system," he said. Same money. Then came modernization, a spreadsheet I'd never used, a logo I hadn't ordered on the invoices. "Cleaner look," Daniel said, tapping the screen. "Clients expect polish." He moved the ledger to the cloud. I watched numbers float into a place I couldn't touch. He said he'd show me the password later. Later didn't arrive. At the workshop, Matthew started stacking tools into neat rows that looked like goodbye. "We're upgrading," he shrugged. "New models are safer. Uncle David says so." Mr. Johnson frowned at the shiny brochures left on my bench. He turned one over, as if truth might be written on the back. Sophia brought flowers every other visit. "Lilies on Monday, roses on Friday. The house deserves pretty things," she said. She stood in the kitchen doorway and gazed at the cabinets. "It's all so lovely. You've done so much. You should enjoy it now, not chase clients." Her voice was honey. Her words were vinegar. The first receipt that didn't look right showed up tucked under my biscuit tin. "Deposit, darbuono, transfer, per POA." I traced the line with my thumb until the ink smudged. When I asked, Daniel laughed softly. "Internal accounting, Mom, less tax friction. You'll see the benefits at year end." He didn't say whose year end. I kept sewing. I kept sweeping sawdust into a neat little hill each evening. The van keys still hung by the door hook, cold as if they already belonged to a different house. Then the calls started thinning. Mrs. Miller skipped a month. The church secretary never rang for the Easter linens. I told myself it was the season, the heat, bad timing. I still laid out thread and measured hems each morning like I always had. Faith is habit. One Tuesday, the phone blinked with a missed call. I pressed play and held the receiver close. Beep. "Emily? It's Ruth Miller." "I stopped by, dear, but your daughter said you've retired." "I'm sorry I missed your party. Please call if you change your mind. We'll miss your stitches." Beep. Retired. A party I hadn't attended. That afternoon, Mr. Johnson walked into the kitchen without wiping his boots. Something he'd never done in 20 years. He put both hands on the table and met my eyes. "Ma'am, Daniel told us the shop would close next month," he said quietly. "He says it's bleeding money. He's talking about selling the tools." He swallowed. "He asked me to help list them." For a second, I saw every table we'd built stacked against the wall like coffins. "Did he show you the books?" I asked. "No, ma'am." "Then it's not the truth," I said, but the certainty in my voice sounded borrowed. I waited for Daniel by the driveway. He rolled down the window but didn't kill the engine. "It's a restructure, Mom," he said. "We'll get better prices if we move fast. You'll still get your rest check." "I never asked for a rest check," I said. He looked past me at the house. 2 days later, Sophia arrived with a tin of cookies and a story to cover the taste. "Mrs. Carter," she told the neighbor over the fence, "has been forgetting things. We're keeping her free of stress." She turned back to me with the same smile. "We told Mrs. Miller you're retired so you can finally breathe." "I breathe fine when I work," I said. She kissed my cheek like she was blessing a child for bedtime. "You will thank us later." I pulled the biscuit tin from the pantry that night and spread my envelopes like tarot cards. The math didn't add up. The cash flow felt thinner, like soup you can see the bottom through. I wrote numbers twice and got the same ache. The next morning I took the early bus to the bank. No Daniel. No saved time. I wore my Sunday dress and pinned my hair up tight so I'd look like someone whose signature still counted. The lobby smelled like floor polish and paper. I waited for the teller with the kind eyes. "I'd like my statements," I said. "3 months back," she typed. Screen light colored her face. She tilted her head. "Name again, please?" I gave it steady. She frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am." "Which account?" "My checking. The one I've had since before my James, more typing. A quiet that wasn't respectful." "Ma'am," she said finally, voice careful. "That account was closed." I felt for the counter edge. "When?" I asked. She looked at the screen, then at me. The teller said, "That account was closed 2 months ago." They didn't bring a stretcher. They brought a clipboard. Daniel called first. "A quick checkup, Mom, just to make sure you're okay. We found a doctor who does house calls. No hassle." Sophia arrived early to tidy up. She moved my pill bottle to the center of the table like a prop. Matthew opened the curtains wide and turned off the TV. The room looked staged, too neat, too quiet. The doctor came with soft shoes and a pen that clicked like a metronome. He shook my hand, but his eyes were already on the paperwork. "Just a few questions," he said, sitting where the light caught my face. "We'll be done in 10 minutes. 10 minutes to measure a life." "What day is it?" he asked. "Tuesday," I said. "And the exact date?" I told him. He nodded without looking up. "Click. Count backward from 100 by sevens." I did, slow and steady. He wrote something anyway. "Please remember these 3 words. Apple, chair, blue." He set his watch. "We'll come back to those." While the second hand circled, he peppered me with more. "Name the season." "Who is the president?" "Spell world backward." "Repeat, no ifs, ands, or buts." He didn't ask about my ledgers or the clients I'd kept for 20 years. He didn't ask how many tables we delivered at Christmas without a single return, or how to hem a dress so it hides a limp. He asked for tricks, not proof. "Now," he said, suddenly bright, "draw a clock for me. Put in all the numbers. Set the time to 10 past 11. I drew the circle, the numbers, the hands. I made the minute hand a touch long so he'd see my care. He took the paper without looking at it and placed it on the stack. "Those 3 words? Apple, chair, blue," I said. He made a small mark, like a teacher who'd already chosen a grade. Daniel hovered behind him, arms folded. Sophia stood by the sink and dried a clean cup that did not need drying. Matthew checked his phone, then his face in the black screen. "Do you ever lose your way at home?" the doctor asked. "No." "Misplace things?" "Everyone misplaces things." "Do you ever forget to turn off the stove?" "No." He smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Sometimes it's hard to notice ourselves. That's why family is here." The room felt like a stage again. He closed the folder and asked to speak with my children, just for a moment. They went to the hallway. Their voices dropped to a low thread I couldn't catch. Paper rustled. The pen clicked twice. Somewhere, a box got a check mark. They returned as a set. Doctor first, then Daniel, then the others. "Well," the doctor said, not unkind, "you're a very capable woman, but I do see signs of mild cognitive impairment. Nothing to panic about. Very common at your age." "At my age," I repeated, tasting the words. "It simply means more supervision is wise. Less stress. Let your family help with decisions. We don't want any mishaps." Daniel exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. Sophia squeezed my shoulder. Matthew nodded at the floor. What signs? I asked. He flipped a page so I couldn't see it. It's a composite score. Attention, recall, executive function. You had some difficulty with the clock. The clock was fine, I said. It was close, he said, which is another word for wrong. I remembered the 3 words. Yes, he said, already moving on. But we look at the whole picture. It's best if the family manages the complex tasks now. Finances, legal matters, medications. You focus on quality of life. Quality as in quiet. Life as in small. He slid a form toward me face down as if that were respectful. I'll document the findings for your primary care and your family, he said. They'll keep you safe. Safe is a soft word with a hard lock behind it. May I have a copy? I asked. Of course, he said, but the copy stayed under his hand. On his way out, he told Daniel in that low professional tone, Early is better. You're doing the right thing. He shook Sophia's hand for longer than he shook mine. He clapped Matthew's shoulder. He told me to get more sleep and do puzzles. The door closed. The house resettled, but something inside it had shifted. The air felt shorter. The rooms felt labeled. Daniel cleared his throat. See, Mom? It's not a big deal. We'll take the heavy stuff. Sophia smiled like a nurse in a brochure. You can relax now, Matthew said too quickly. We'll handle the bills. We'll keep you from being taken advantage of. By whom? I wanted to ask, but the question stuck. I washed the cup Sophia had already dried. I wiped the same clean counter twice. In my mind, I saw a new file somewhere with my name on it, and a single line that could open or close doors. Mild cognitive impairment. Not a sentence, they'd say. Just a caution. But I could feel the weight of it already, like a hand on the back of my neck, steering. Labels sound light. They travel heavy. I went to the pantry and touched the biscuit tin where the receipts lived. Proof still had a place here, I told myself. Proof still counted. But even my tin felt smaller, like the cupboard had shrunk around it by half an inch. When the phone rang that evening, Daniel answered for me. They said I was confused, so they decided for me. They didn't ask me to pack a bag. They brought an ambulance, red lights without siren out of respect for the neighbors. Daniel met them at the curb with a manila envelope. Sophia walked beside me, hands hovering, saying, It's only temporary, Mom. Just until you feel better. Matthew stood back like a boy who'd thrown a rock and was waiting for the glass to fall. Mrs. Carter? The medic said, soft voice, firm grip. We're going to take good care of you. I'm not hurt, I said. Just a precaution, he said, eyes flicking to the papers Daniel held. On the stretcher, the straps were snug, then snugger. I watched my ceiling pass in squares, the water stain shaped like Arizona, the nick from moving the wardrobe, the web in the far corner I kept meaning to sweep. At the door, Sophia kissed my forehead. A few days, she promised. You'll rest. The ambulance smelled like plastic and lemon cleaner. A cuff squeezed my arm. A pulse line blinked green. The medic asked if I knew my name. I told him twice. We rolled into the residence under a portico where hydrangeas bloomed in a tidy line. Inside, a bright lobby, a fish tank, a bulletin board with movie night. In big letters, everything was friendly on purpose. Intake was a desk with a computer and a woman who had patience for forms but not for stories. We just need some signatures, she said, sliding papers the way a dealer slides cards. This acknowledges you've been admitted for observation. She looked at Daniel. And these confirm the care plan. You're her agent? Yes, he said, tapping the line that liked him more than it liked me. They put a wristband on me. My name, my birthday, a barcode that beeped when it touched anything metal. A nurse in clogs took my blood pressure, my temperature, my weight. "We'll get you settled," she said, and smiled the way people smile at children who say they aren't tired. My room was clean, narrow, and ordinary. One bed, one wardrobe, one window with bars you didn't notice until you stood close and felt the cool iron under the paint. The view was of a small garden with a path no one walked alone. A chair waited by the bed, as if expecting a visitor who had called ahead. Sophia set my handbag in the wardrobe as if that made it mine. Daniel stood by the door and checked the time. Matthew stared at the floor and said, "This place is nice," as if nice were a lock that didn't click. "It's only temporary," Sophia said again. "They'll evaluate you. A week, 2 at most." The nurse returned with a small paper cup and a little plastic water glass. "Evening meds," she said. "Helps with sleep. What is it?" I asked. "Just standard," she said, and made a note on a chart that was already a story about me. I took the cup. The pill sat on my tongue like a pebble. I swallowed water and held back the thought that if I slept, time would move without me. They left after promises and long hugs and one final, "You'll thank us later." The door whispered shut. It made more sound in my chest than it did in the hall. Life inside knew its steps. Wake at 6 to the push of light under the door. Breakfast at 7, oatmeal, toast, a banana cut in coins. Morning activity at 9, watercolor or brain games. Physical therapy at 2 if you had a referral. Dinner at 5. Lights dim at 8. A cart rattled by at 10 with pill cups and the nurse who said each name like a question. The television in the common room spoke to no one in particular, all day and most of the night. On the second morning, I asked if I could call my bank. "We can help with that," the nurse said, writing request phone assistance on my chart. On the third, I told the day doctor the diagnosis didn't fit. "Insight can be impaired," he said kindly, adding lacks insight where I could not erase it. On the fourth, I mentioned my workshop and my clients. "Occupational preoccupation," he dictated, and the clerk typed my life into 2 words that sounded like a complaint. I learned the language of the chart. If I said I was fine, it became denies symptoms. If I cried, it became label affect. If I asked to see the papers my children signed, it became fixation on legal matters. My name was still my name, but the line that followed it had shifted, and doors hinged on that line. At night, I stood at the window and tested the bars with my hands. They did not move. Down in the garden, sprinklers clicked in the dark, watering the same patch of grass until it gleamed. I folded my days into squares to keep them from fraying. Make the bed, smooth the sheet, keep a pencil stub in my pocket. Write down the little facts no one else recorded, who had the keys on change of shift, which nurse counted pills without looking up, what time the door to the laundry stayed propped open. They called this place safe. Maybe it was, if you didn't mind being misplaced. "Lights out," the hall voice said. I lay back and pressed my palm to the plastic band until the letters warmed. They had given me a label and a room and a routine. They had given me a story where I was smaller than my signature. If they'd taken my name, I'd take it back, piece by piece. Night was kinder than day. In the day, everything had a label. At night, the labels slept and people peeked out. That's when I met Sarah. You could hear her before you saw her, the soft hush of rubber soles, the careful clink of a keys ring she kept tucked into her palm so it wouldn't sing. She was younger than my daughter, hair in a loose braid, a little penlight clipped to her pocket like a star she could switch on. "Mrs. Carter?" she whispered the first week after the carts quieted. "You haven't been sleeping." "I don't like pills that erase the hours," I said. She nodded like a person who had heard truer things than that and set the little paper cup on the tray. "Tell me what keeps you awake." So I told her about the folder, the signatures, the house sold while my curtains still hung in the windows. I expected the polite face. She didn't offer it. She listened with her whole posture like someone leaning over a map. "People think this place is only for the body," she said finally. "A lot of families bring more than bodies here." She glanced at the door before adding, "What you're describing, it has a name, financial abuse. We have an ombudsman's number on the bulletin board, but no one uses it because staff take the calls during the day." "I need more than a number," I said. "I need my life back." Sarah came on nights 4 times a week. We learned the building's heartbeat together. The laundry door propped with a wedge from 2:05 to 2:20. The medroom closed for count at $3 sharp. The back patio camera that flickered for 9 seconds when the sprinklers kicked on. While the halls breathed, we shared quiet. She never asked me to be small to be safe. Whispers travel at night. That's how the others found me, one at a time, in moments when their charts couldn't hear. Mr. Alvarez, who used to keep books for a hardware store, carried numbers in his head like other men carry prayers. "My grandson needed startup money," he said, rolling a rubber band between his fingers. "Now I have a startup room." He showed me the blank space on his ring where a key used to live. Ms. Green, a retired teacher with a sharp eye, read everything. "Your doctor wrote lacks insight because you disagree," she said, tapping the margin of my copy with a pencil. "That's not medicine. That's a shortcut." Mrs. Patel, gentle and fierce when lucid, had come after a hip fracture and stayed for safety. "They say I wander," she whispered. "I walked my neighborhood for 40 years and never lost my way." Stories like mine, bent the same way. If we were all confused, we were confused in the same direction. I started keeping a different kind of ledger. Not money, facts, dates, names, who said what to whom. Which nurse witnessed a remark? Which form the desk asked Daniel to sign? I wrote on scraps, the backs of activity sheets, the edges of meal tickets. I kept the scraps under the mattress, taped into a folded pillowcase seam, tucked into the spine of the Bible no one borrowed. "Paper is how they took it," I told Sarah. "Paper is how I'll take it back." "We'll need the right paper," she said. "And it can't leave through the front desk." So we built a pipeline. Ms. Green edited my letters until they stood straight. Mr. Alvarez checked the sums. Transfers that didn't match. A sale price that sagged where the market didn't. I addressed envelopes by hand. Adult Protective Services, Elder Abuse Unit, Long-Term Care Ombudsman, County Clerk Records Request, Attorney Robert Davis, if he still had the same office. Channel 7 investigates because television makes some doors lighter. Sarah brought stamps one night, sliding them under my tea napkin like a magician's coin. "From the machine at the bus station," she said. "No one asks questions there." We rehearsed. How to fold so the pages didn't gum the envelope. How to seal with a finger wrapped in clean gauze so the flap wouldn't shine suspiciously wet. Which pocket in her tote would keep them flat against a textbook, so a supervisor, if curious, would only see a chapter on pharmacology. The first night we tried, the hall clock clicked louder than usual. A floor buffer hummed 3 rooms down, then stopped, then hummed again. I could feel my heart in my wristband. "Ready?" Sarah whispered. I handed her the envelope I had addressed 3 times because my hand shook the first 2. Inside, the short truth, tight as a knot. Dates, banks, the doctor's name. The line "I am not confused" printed in block letters so even a tired clerk would have to read it. Sarah slipped it into her tote and rested her hand on the bag for a second, the way you settle a child about to cross a street. "You don't owe me anything," she said. I owe you my name with the dust wiped off, I said. The building exhaled. Somewhere down the hall, a cartwheel squeaked and then remembered how to be quiet. I lay back and stared at the ceiling tile mapped with faint cracks, a country I was going to leave. The first letter left the building at 2:17 a.m. Change came in a clipboard card and new name badges, a different logo on the staff pins. Fresh paint on the nurses' station. A memo posted crooked on the bulletin board. Chart review all residents. People call it modernization. In places like this, modernization means someone finally looks. Sarah tipped me off on her night round. New medical director starts tomorrow, she whispered. Young, reads everything. In the morning, a woman in a navy blazer stopped at my doorway. Brown hair pulled back, clear eyes that didn't slide off your face. She introduced herself as Dr. Jennifer Taylor and asked if she could sit. I'm reviewing everyone's records, she said, opening my chart on her lap. I like to meet the person behind the paper. Paper says a lot, I said. Not always the right things, she smiled once, small. That's why we check. She didn't start with the clock. She started with me. Tell me about your work, she said. So I did. Tables delivered on deadlines, hems turned the same day, 2 ledgers in tidy columns. She asked the kinds of questions that make people real. Not tricks, tasks. How do you organize orders? What's your process when a client doesn't pay? Walk me through your bank deposits. When she finally pulled out a testing sheet, she explained it like a carpenter laying out tools. I'm going to use a standardized cognitive screen, she said. It looks at attention, language, memory, and executive function. It's longer than what you did before. She checked vision with a reading card so letters didn't punish my eyes. She asked about my sleep and the pills that dulled it. Then the test began. Repeat these 5 words, she said, and I did. She had me tap when I heard a specific letter in a stream of letters. Attention without trickery. We drew a clock again, but this time she watched my process, not just the picture. Good spacing, she murmured. Hands correct. We traced a cube. We named animals. She asked me to subtract by sequences that made sense. She gave me a messy list and asked me to place the items into categories. Groceries here, tools there, I said, my hand sorting an invisible counter. She nodded and took notes. We paused so I could sip water and so she could check her time marks. Then, delayed recall. Those 5 words from the beginning? She asked. I said them back, steady, all 5. She didn't hide her reaction. She made a firm check mark and wrote a line I couldn't see but felt land in my favor. When the screen was over, she didn't snap the folder shut. She turned back through the older pages and read the words that had pinned me to a bed for 3 years. Mild cognitive impairment, lacks insight, occupational preoccupation, all written in the same hurried hand, the same day. Was there a full exam? She asked, mostly to herself. She flipped again. Any lab work? Depression screen? Hearing check? She frowned. No, she looked up. Did anyone ever interview someone besides your children? A neighbor? Staff who see you daily? Sarah, I said. Ms. Green, Mr. Alvarez. I'll speak with them, she said, and made a list of names. She checked medications, then ordered simplifications. We'll remove sedating drugs unless clearly needed, she told the nurse at the station. And I want a copy of the original note from Dr. White and any collateral documents, she added. Spelling his name out loud for the clerk. By afternoon, she was back with printouts and a new form, second opinion, capacity and cognitive status. She reviewed it line by line, the way I used to proof invoices. Orientation, intact. Attention, intact. Visuospatial executive, intact. Language, intact. Immediate recall, intact. Delayed recall, intact. Function, manages complex tasks by report. Demonstrates planning and sequencing. At the bottom, a line that took the weight off my chest by whole bricks at a time. Findings do not support prior diagnosis of dementia or mild cognitive impairment. Prior conclusion appears unsupported. Recommend immediate reassessment of placement and legal status. Do you understand what this means? She asked. It means I'm not what the file says, I answered. It means the file was wrong, she said, and the difference mattered. She signed the form with a clear hand, then added 2 more orders. Notify ombudsman. Copy to administrator. Copy to resident. And, careful, almost gentle, copy to family, after consent. Do you consent? She asked me. I consent to the truth, I said. She closed the chart and didn't let it eat her words. I'll document this today, she said. We'll start the discharge process and contact the appropriate agencies. I'll also request a review of how the original decision was made. I gripped the arm of the chair to feel something solid. She looked up and said, You don't belong here. Freedom needs paperwork, too. Dr. Taylor's second opinion report sat on my lap like a warm brick. Solid, weighty, useful. She'd already sent copies to the administrator and the ombudsman. Discharge in process, the note said in plain words that felt like a door unlocking. Next step? Sarah asked that night, her keys hidden in her palm. Take back my signature, I said. We made a list on the back of an activity flyer. 1. Revoke the power of attorney. 2. Call the attorney. 3. Lock down the money, or name the witnesses. 3. Plan the confrontations. We numbered each line twice because getting it right mattered. Revocation. The residents had a notary who came on Thursdays. I asked the desk to put my name first on the sheet. For personal papers, I said. When the notary wheeled in her little case, I laid Dr. Taylor's report beside my ID so there'd be no hesitation. The revocation form was simple. 1 page, my name, their names, today's date, my hand firm. The stamp thunked down like a judge's gavel. Sarah slipped 2 certified mail envelopes to me later, pre-addressed to the banks. Return receipt, she whispered. So someone has to sign. The call. Sarah let me use her phone on her break near the laundry door at 2:10 when the camera blinked. Robert Davis, the voice said, older but the same shape. It's Emily Carter, I said. I have a second opinion, a revocation, and a box of facts. He didn't waste my seconds. Bring copies. We'll file capacity confirmation, notice to financial institutions, and a records request on the house sale. I'll draft a preservation letter to your children. No destruction of documents. Can you be here tomorrow? By noon, I said, and felt the word rise like bread. Money. That afternoon, I asked the administrator for an escorted trip to the bank to set up post-discharge services. People like plans. The word services opens doors. I packed my ID, Medicare card, the revocation, and a short script I had written in pencil so nerves wouldn't steal words. Close agent access. New account, new PIN, fraud alert. Statements to me only. Dr. Taylor added a line to my chart. Resident competent to manage own affairs, the key that made the teller's side of the counter tilt toward me again. Witnesses. Names. Filled my notebook like seeds. Mr. Johnson, the careful carpenter, would testify to the modernization no one asked for. Mrs. Miller had the voicemail where Sophia said I'd retired. Ms. Green, the teacher, would speak to the chart's shortcuts. Mr. Alvarez knew the math, sale price that sagged where the market didn't. Mrs. Carmela, my old neighbor, heard the words she passed in a live voice. Sarah would swear to the letters. Dr. Taylor would anchor it all. I wrote each name on a sticky tab and put them into a cheap accordion folder. Bank, house, medical, timeline, witnesses, red tabs, easy to read. I slid the biscuit tin receipts into plastic sleeves, row by row, proof growing into a book. Pressure plan. You don't talk to all children the same. Daniel pried. He liked shiny and official. I would bring paper that outshone his. Dr. Taylor's findings, the revocation, a preservation letter with his name printed clean. We'd meet where pride has mirrors, his front steps, his office lobby. I'd speak in numbers and dates, the language he pretended to own. Sophia, image. She needed to be seen as good. I would choose a public place with witnesses who did not owe her a smile. The salon, the school parking lot, the grocery line at 4 p.m. I'd say little, only what fit on a receipt. You told people I died. Return what you took. 1 week. The echo would do the rest. Matthew, conscience. Guilt wakes early. I'd go to him at opening hour, when you can still smell cleaner and hope. No crowd, just truth and a pen. Write what you did. Start paying it back. Testify. If he looked me in the eye, there was a way through. I laid out clothes that fit the woman I am, not the file they wrote. Clean skirt, soft blouse, sturdy shoes. Sarah trimmed my hair in the staff lounge after her shift, careful and quick. Your face is back, she said, and I almost cried. Before lights out, I walked the hall once more, the familiar route I'd memorized when I had nowhere to go. Past the fish tank, past the bulletin board with movie night. I passed the locked med room. I touched the wristband letters until they warmed under my skin. Tomorrow the band would come off. My name would go back on my own door. Sarah handed me a small zip pouch. Inside, bus fare, 2 quarters for the copier, a blue pen that didn't smudge. For luck, she said. For proof, I answered. I slept without the pill and dreamed only of doors. Morning would be oatmeal, signatures, and a ride to the bank. Then the attorney's office with its coffee no one finishes. Then the street, sun in my eyes, my folder heavy in my hands, my steps my own. Tomorrow at noon the gate would open. Then the doors I chose would close. They cut the wristband. It snapped like a tiny door unlatched. I walked out under the same portico where the hydrangeas had watched me arrive. The air felt too bright. Sarah hugged me fast, keys hidden in her palm like always, and tucked a folded paper into my bag. My statement, she said. If anyone asks what you were like at 3 a.m. We didn't say goodbye. We said, see you outside. First stop, the bank. I stood at the counter with Dr. Taylor's capacity letter, the notarized revocation, and a list I'd copied in pencil. The manager read every line, eyebrows knitting as the picture came into focus. I want agent access removed on all accounts tied to my name, I said. I want a new account and a new PIN made in person. I want a fraud alert placed. I want paper statements mailed to me only. Of course, Ms. Carter. He made calls, spoke the language of hold codes and internal flags. A clerk stamped forms I kept. The printer spat out a fresh account number, mine and only mine. He slid a pen across, the good kind, and watched me sign with a hand that didn't shake. Anything else? He asked. Yes, I said. I want a complete transaction history for the last 4 years. That will require a formal request, he said softer. But we'll help you file it. Outside, the sun felt like something I could stand under without permission. I bought a cheap notebook and wrote the date on the first page like a person who expects to turn the next. Then I took the bus to the street where my curtains used to hang. From the corner, my old house looked like it had gotten a new name. Fresh paint in a color I never would have chosen. The bougainvillea was gone. Roots ripped, soil smoothed. A wreath hung on the door that tried too hard to be friendly. Through the window, I could see a new dining set, glossy and square. A woman I didn't know passed by carrying folded laundry. A child's laugh bounced down the hall that used to echo with mine. "Mrs. Carter?" a voice called. I turned. It was Mrs. Carmela from 2 doors down, hand to chest, eyes wide. "We heard you passed," she blurted, then stammered. "I mean, your son said that you—" "I'm here," I said. "Very much here," her eyes filled. "She told me they'd held a little prayer for my soul at the church. She told me Daniel had said dementia takes people before it takes them. She told me she was sorry, and then she put both hands around mine like a person comforting someone who had come back from a place you don't come back from." "How much did they sell it for?" I asked when I could. She shook her head. "They said it had to go quickly. The county building sits 5 stops away. The records office keeps a public terminal where you can type your name and watch your life scroll in black and white. Grant deed, recorded. Sale price. A number that made my stomach go cold. I knew the street. I knew the market. That price was a cut soldiered as a bargain. The buyer's name matched an LLC with a mailbox address. Flip material. I printed the page and fed coins into a machine that eats grief and spits out paper. Next, the assessor's site. The new owner's updates. Permits pulled. A fast refinance at a value my sale never touched. A clean way to turn my years into someone else's down payment. I walked a different route back and let the city tell on my children. At a stoplight, a silver crossover slid past with Sophia at the wheel. Sunglasses on. The kind you buy when you want to be seen not seeing. New model. New plates. A school decal in the back window as if goodness were a sticker. Near downtown, Matthew's Auto Parts store stood on a corner too prime for beginners. The glass was flawless, the shelves full. On the counter, a point-of-sale system I couldn't have afforded without a holiday rush and a miracle. He looked up as I paused in the doorway, and for a heartbeat his face emptied to the boy I knew. I kept walking. His chapter would come. I took a bus past a subdivision gate you can't enter without a code, and stared too long at a house that looked like a magazine. Landscaping with the kind of sprinklers that don't click. A delivery van set a box at the door with a logo I didn't know. The name on the mailbox was blurred by a little brass sheen. I did not need to read it to understand the shape. Back in my rented room, I laid the day's papers on the bed. New account printout, revocation receipts, deed copy, assessor summary, a page of bus transfers. I wrote the facts into my notebook and underlined them once, then again. I did not write feelings. Facts are the scaffolding. You can hang justice on them later. The phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. "Robert Davis," the voice said when I answered. "I've prepared the preservation letters and subpoenas. We'll start with the property file and the bank's agent logs." "Good," I said. "I found the deed. The price is wrong." He exhaled the way people do when the thing you feared is the thing you can prove. "Bring everything." I looked at my name at the top of a fresh account. I looked at a copy of my old front door with someone else's wreath. If I was dead, someone cashed my afterlife. I was waiting at 7:55 when he flipped the sign to open. The store smelled like cleaner and new rubber. He looked up, saw me, and the color drained from his face. "Good morning, son," I said steady. "Mom, how—" "By the front door," I said. "Like people who belong." He tried the smile he used on customers. It broke in the middle. "We're going to do 3 things," I said, laying my folder on the counter. "You're going to tell the truth. You're going to return what you took. And you're going to help fix what your brother and sister broke." He swallowed. Daniel said, "Daniel doesn't get your conscience." I slid a single page to him. Confession, Matthew Smith. Date, time, store address. Lines already drawn for amounts and signatures. Read aloud, I told him, so the words would fit his mouth. I took funds from Emily Carter's accounts to open Smith's Auto Parts. I knew, or should have known, I had no right. Tears came the way summer rain comes. Fast. Apologetic, useless. Mom, I can repay some now, he said. Today. How much, I asked. He named a number that wasn't everything and wasn't nothing. Enough to show fear had met math. Half by wire before noon, I said. The rest in a plan my attorney drafts. You'll testify to the source of funds and the sale of the house. You'll bring your statements, invoices, and texts. He nodded, wiped his face with the back of his wrist like he was 10 again, and signed. The printer spat a transfer receipt while my account balance blinked larger by an honest fraction. I made him initial every page, then took his photo holding the document. Date stamp on, flash off. I'll make it right, he whispered. You'll make it true, I said, and left before he could decide he needed permission to be decent. Sophia, salon at 4. The dryers roared like small storms. The place smelled of hairspray and heat. Sophia sat under a hood, magazine open, nails perfect. She saw me in the mirror the way a lake sees a cloud, sudden and all at once. Hi, sweetheart, I said, calm enough for everyone to hear. The stylists froze. 2 women lifted their heads from foil like startled birds. This lady is your mother? The receptionist asked, eyes wide. I thought you said... She said I died, I answered, still looking at my daughter. She said dementia took me before the end. She said I retired. She also said she loved me. Sophia stood too fast. The chair bumped. She's confused, she told the room. And then to me, low and fierce, what are you doing here? I laid 3 papers on the counter. Dr. Taylor's second opinion, my revocation, a copy of the deed with that wrong price glowing like a bruise. These are mine, I said. You will return what you took. You will correct the lies you told the neighbors, the bank, your school. You can't humiliate me like this, she hissed, glancing at the watching faces. I'm giving you a choice in public so you can choose to be the person you say you are, I said. 1 week. Bring a cashier's check for your share and a written statement to my attorney's office. 7 days, Sophia. On the 8th, the court learns what the salon already knows. A dryer clicked off. Silence settled with the hair clippings. Mom, please, she said. Last card, last tone. 1 week, I repeated, and walked out past a poster that said, Be your true self in letters meant for someone else. Seaguard Daniel doorstep at 6. His new house had gates that pretended to be trees. The driveway curved for show. He pulled in at 6 on schedule, wearing a suit the color of expensive doubt. I sat on his steps with my folder like a guest who brought something real. He didn't startle. He calculated. What do you want, ma'am? He said. To return your mother, I said, standing. She's alive. She's competent. And she has your paperwork. I handed him a litigation hold letter. Preserve all documents, texts, emails, bank logs, and Dr. Taylor's report on top like a light that wouldn't switch off. He didn't read. He watched my face and chose the ugliest line. My mother died in a care facility, he said. This harassment will be reported. You'll report it to the same conscience Matthew found this morning? I asked. Or to the court that will read your transfers out loud. His jaw tightened. Everything we did was lawful. You signed. You were evaluated. A judge approved the sale. Then you won't mind showing the judge what you showed him before, I said. Unedited. With dates. Under oath. He tried to hand the papers back. I stepped away. They've been served, I said. Keep them. Read them. Frame them if you like frames. You will regret this, he said, voice flat as a stamp. I already regret what raised you, I answered. The rest is correction. A porch light flicked on across the street. Neighbors are a kind of jury. "See you in court," I said, and turned before he could decide which lie would look best from behind his door. On the bus home, I placed the 3 fresh pages in my folder. Matthew's confession, the salon ultimatum, Daniel's hold notice, between witnesses and timeline. Paper had taken my life. Paper would carry it back into the light. The next time we met, they'd enter in orange. Courtrooms smell like old paper and new polish. They sound like shoes that remember how to be quiet. We sat where names sit, plaintiff on my table, defendant on theirs. I kept my folder open like a small door. My attorney, Mr. Davis, stacked our exhibits in the order a story breathes. Time first, then money, then motive. Slide 1. Timeline. Projector hum. A simple spine on the screen. June, POA signed. August, account access added. October, modernization. December, shop, closure. April, account closed. July, commitment. Dates that once scattered like nails now lined up and pointed in the same direction. The jury leaned forward. Small forward. Enough. Exhibit A. Bank agent log. A clerk from my bank took the stand with a binder as thick as a phone book used to be. She pointed to fields on a printout. Agent ID DS314, action, access added. IP address. "Who is DS314? Mr. Davis asked. "Our records show Daniel Smith," she said. "And this entry? Transfer of $1,800 from Ms. Carter's savings to account ending 0912. Authorized by Agent DS314. The screen showed the log. You could feel the room learn the word agent in a new way. Exhibit B. Check images. 2 blown-up checks. My name printed neat, my signature not. The bank's handwriting examiner traced the differences with a clear ruler. Different slant. Different pressure. Manufactured tremor to mimic age, he said. The juror in the denim jacket nodded once like a mechanic hearing an engine he understands. Exhibit C. Voicemail. Speaker crackle. Mrs. Miller pressed a button on a little gray device. "Emily, dear, your daughter said you've retired. We'll miss your stitches." The sound hung in the wood-paneled room longer than my heart wanted. Witness, Mr. Johnson, carpenter. He took off his cap at the rail. "Daniel came in with a stack of brochures and said we were done," he testified. "Said the shop bled money. He never showed me books. We were booked through Thanksgiving." He stared at his hands like they still held a plane. Mini reveal. Text capture. Blown up. "From Daniel to Sophia, Mom won't know. We'll handle it." Date stamped the afternoon my account closed. The defense objected. The judge overruled. The words stayed big. Witness, Ms. Green, retired teacher. She held my chart like a graded paper. "These notes, lacks insight, occupational preoccupation, appear on the same day in the same hand with no supporting tests," she said. "That's not medicine. That's narrative." Witness, Sarah, night nurse. "She spoke the way you do when truth fits your mouth." "Mrs. Carter was oriented, consistent, and organized," she said. "She wrote letters. She logged events. I smuggled them out because daytime channels were compromised." The defense tried disgruntled employee. She didn't flinch. "I kept my job. I kept my ethics." Witness, Dr. Taylor. She was a calm instrument. "I performed a standardized cognitive screen," she testified, listing each domain. Results were within normal limits. There is no medical basis for a dementia diagnosis. Prior conclusion was unsupported. In your opinion, did Ms. Carter have capacity to manage her affairs? Yes. Did continued placement meet medical necessity? No. Mini reveal, house file, document camera. Grant deed, $80,000. Next to it, a county assessor snapshot 8 weeks later. Valuation up 30% after cosmetic changes. Then a refi statement. Mr. Davis didn't sermonize. He lined the papers side by side until the numbers tutored themselves. Witness, county clerk, records. She identified a affidavit of airship death filed for me, no death certificate attached. The judge looked over his glasses. Counsel? The defense swallowed a word and changed the subject. Witness, me. I told it straight. No embroidery. The folder. The signatures, the bank line, the barred window, the letters, the night shift, the second opinion, the bus to my old block, and the neighbor who said they'd prayed for my soul. Mr. Davis asked, "Did you ever authorize your children to sell your house below market?" No. To close your accounts without you? No. To tell the world you died? No. Witness, Dr. White. He adjusted his tie twice before speaking. Did you perform a full cognitive evaluation? The prosecutor asked. A brief screen, he said. Labs, depression screen? Hearing check? Informant other than family? No. Why diagnose mild cognitive impairment? He looked at Daniel, then at the table. I was told it was a complicated family situation. I thought I was helping. Were you compensated? He blinked. A consulting honorarium. A number followed that made one juror's pen stop moving. Do you stand by your diagnosis? Silence. Then, no. Defense. Daniel. He chose smooth. We acted lawfully, he said. Mom signed. We modernized. We protected her. From what? Mr. Davis asked. From confusion. Whose? He didn't answer. Mini reveal. Preservation letter ignored. Email print. Sent, litigation hold. Received, auto reply. Next day, device reset on Daniel's phone log. The jury learned another new phrase. Spoliation risk. By late afternoon, exhibits sat in tidy towers. Paper, which had once been the villain, had switched sides. The judge gave instructions about elements and standards. He stacked the verdict forms like thin, sleeping animals. Tomorrow, he said, 10 a.m. We filed out past the seal on the wall and the sketch artist who had drawn my hands too still. I sat in my rented room with the lights off and read every signature again, like a person counting beads until a prayer knows itself. Verdict tomorrow, 10 a.m. I didn't sleep. I counted signatures. The judge read the words the way a person reads weather. Measured, unavoidable, guilty, on fraud, on elder abuse, on unlawful imprisonment. Paper that once carried me into a locked room now carried them to the place on the left of the courtroom where the deputy waits. No one clapped. Courtrooms don't clap. The clerk gathered the verdict forms. Mr. Davis squeezed my hand once, quick, like passing a note. You're here. You did it. The deputy asked Daniel to stand. His jaw held, eyes flat. Sophia cried without moving her face. Matthew stared at the floor and nodded when the judge said his. Cooperation had weight, sentences, terms. That sounded long when spoken out loud and longer when you imagine candles on birthdays that will not be at home. The judge spoke restitution too, numbers, interest, costs, then turned each count into orders that travel farther than apologies. Wages to be garnished, lines to attach, a civil judgment to follow them the way my name followed me, even when I wore a band. Dr. White did not face bars. He faced paper, a referral to the board, a consent decree in the air already, a line on his record that would read like a bruise. He could still go home for dinner. He will eat with his hands clean and a stain no one else can see. When the gavel fell, it was quiet enough to hear the vending machine hum outside. People filed out. A reporter whispered, "Ma'am, do you have a statement?" I shook my head. This story had already given the world too many words. Down the hall, we signed the last documents: order of restitution, return of property or equivalent value, protective order, so I would not have to hear from the people who used to call me Mom unless a court needed them to speak. The clerk slid copies across and said, "Congratulations," the way you say it at a graduation when you don't know the student. Mr. Davis asked if I wanted lunch. I said no. We stood on the courthouse steps and watched the light wobble on the seal set into the stone. He cleared his throat. "Checks take time," he said. "Enforcement takes attention. We'll push." "I've learned how to push," I said, and we both looked a little surprised that my voice sounded gentle. The money came the way winter comes in the desert, slow, then suddenly present. The first deposit was Matthew's, exactly the number he had promised, with 2 extra zeros he hadn't. The state collection unit sent the next, Sophia's wages taxed with shame before they touched her hand. Daniel's share arrived after a fight with a bank that had liked his suits. It arrived anyway. I bought a modest house with light that comes in at the right angle for reading. I paid the woman who cut my hair in the staff lounge to do it in a salon, in a chair, with my name in the book. I put new curtains up myself and stood back to see if they hung straight. They did. One afternoon I opened a thick envelope. Satisfaction of judgment, partial. Numbers circled, balances reduced. Proof but not parade. I put it in the accordion folder behind bank and house, then closed the clasp and set the folder on a shelf where it would gather dust, like all the other important things that don't need daily handling. People asked how it felt. I told them the truth, like stepping out of a storm into a room where the windows still rattle. Justice is a hinge, not a bed. Sophia sent a letter from a halfway apartment with a key she didn't own. "You ruined my life," it said. I didn't answer. Matthew brought his children to my porch with store-bought cookies and a willingness to listen. That is how a life starts again, clumsy and on time. Daniel did what men like Daniel do, changed cities and names and the story he told himself at night. I walked the block where my old house stands now. The bougainvillea is still gone. The wreath says, "Welcome to whoever lives there." I don't want it back. I want the lesson it paid for to keep paying others. On Sunday, I sat in a circle of metal folding chairs with women who could be my sisters and listened to them say out loud the things they once only thought in the dark. We wrote names on a whiteboard and next steps on sticky notes. We passed around a list of phone numbers that answers after 5. I went home to my small kitchen and made tea. I set 1 cup at the table for the woman I used to be, the one who believed signatures were always the voice of love. I told her she did the best she could with the day she had. I told her we are not only what was done to us, we are what we do next. The night was ordinary. The moon did what the moon always does. I turned off the lamp and let quiet be quiet. You can reclaim assets. Family is another court. We started as 4 chairs in a church basement. Me, Ms. Green with her red pen, Mr. Alvarez with his rubber band, and Sarah after her night shift, keys tucked quiet in her palm. We wrote names on a scrap of paper and called the list "People Who Believe You." The next week there were 8 chairs. Then 12. A month later, we had a borrowed room, a sign-in sheet, and a pot of coffee that never cooled. We made the rules simple. Tell the truth, without shame. Bring 1 receipt. Leave with 1 step you can take by Friday. We filed our first hotline reports together, because phone trees are braver with witnesses. We learned what words unlock doors: capacity, undue influence, revocation, ombudsman. We kept a shared folder where forms lived in plain English. and a whiteboard where victories went in blue and setbacks in pencil, so they could be rubbed out and tried again. By spring, we had a name the women chose, the Dignity Circle. Mr. Davis came one Sunday to teach us how to read a deed. Dr. Taylor came another to explain second opinions and how to ask for them. Sarah set up a calendar so no one ever went to a bank or courthouse alone again. Some days we cried. More days we photocopied. At home, my boundaries stayed put. The protective order held like a fence you don't have to repaint if you don't lean on it. Matthew kept showing up, with pay stubs, with therapy notes, with his kids who know me as grandma and not as a roomer. I saved a chair for Sophia and Daniel that remains empty. That is not bitterness. That is a boundary. People ask what I learned. This, most of all. Generosity needs boundaries. Respect is the price of access. Love without limits is not love. It's erasure with a smile. If you are where I was, misnamed on paper, start small and start now. Write today's date. Make a list. Call once. Tell one person who believes you. Paper hurt me. Paper helped me. What changed was whose hand held the pen. This channel isn't for parades. It's for proof, and for the kind of hope that survives paperwork. Would you have gone public or kept it private? Where are you watching from? New True Stories Sundays. Subscribe.